Hey Fit Fam, Coach Rye, we are back on Carnivore Experiment. I got Haley over here, and we got a lot of great things we're going to talk about today. We're going to get right into how to start a carnivore diet and 3 different ways to do it that we have found work the best for a lot of people. We've kind of seen that there's a big gap in, hey, everybody should be carnivore and all you got to do is eat meat. And how does the average everyday person who's interested in trying this diet actually make it happen? That's what we're going to talk about today. But first, Haley, how's everything going in your world?
Everything's going great. Super excited about today's podcast. I'm excited about everything that we're going to cover and hopefully giving everybody really solid tips on how to start the carnivore diet. It is a common question that I get asked a lot, and hopefully this will be very helpful for anybody who's interested in experimenting with carnivore.
It will be so helpful. So you guys make sure you stick around with us. And also all of you out there that were commenting about me and Haley in our sailor language. We are making a diligent effort to reduce the explicitness and the swear words happening on this podcast. So we do listen to your guys' feedback. We love the comments. Please comment more. Let us know what you think of our show. Let us know what you want us to talk about, topics, ideas, everything else. Or, hey, guys, quit swearing, okay? Which we are going to do our best to do. But bear with us because me and Haley, we are bodybuilding coaches. We are... we do a lot of swearing in a lot of senses, but we're going to make a really good effort today. I feel good about it so far. So let's get it going. Haley, first though, before we get to our topic, I want to talk a little bit about, what's been going on with you and your diet. Your whole carnivore experiment so far has kind of evolved. I think you've eaten some bear meat since the last time we were on here.
Yes.
I mean, we did shift your food choices all over to, quote unquote lion diet. So tell us a little bit what's just going on in your world. What's going on with the meat? What's the secret in the meat over there?
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, I am training for a bodybuilding show that is going to be in August, and it's an entire carnivore prep. And for those of you who don't know what carnivore is, if maybe this is the first podcast you're listening to, it's where you're just eating animal meats and animal fats. So it's like, beef, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy for some people, although Ryan and I debate about this. He's like, dairy is not carnivore.
We do debate.
And we decided to make it more intense. And about a month ago, we switched my diet over to what's classically known as the lion diet, where you're only eating ruminant meats, salt, water. And the only exception we make to this diet is black coffee, which I do have every day. So ruminant meats, I'm eating mainly beef and elk. And that's it. And then I have my water and I cook everything in beef tallow and I salt everything. And that's all I'm consuming for the rest of prep, which will be another 12 weeks. And it's going great. The switch to the lion diet has been surprisingly a good one. It was started as an experiment, of course. We were like, let's try this for 14 days. Let's see what happens. And we ended up really loving it for prep and for what I'm trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish. And also just even for the experimental side of it, there's so many people in bodybuilding that are like, you can't compete successfully without carbs. You can't compete successfully in place if you're not eating, a bunch of carbs to fill the muscles or without carb loading. So we're putting that theory to the test. Like, can this be done healthily? I'm going to be doing blood draws peak week. Am I going to place at all? Will I be last place? Ooh, how are we going to pump? You know what I mean? No, but it's all a part of the experiment. It's all a part of these are all questions that we want to find out, because I don't know of anybody who I've heard of people competing with carnivore, right? Maybe like one or two people out there, but I've never heard of anybody competing with the lion diet, right? Like I've never heard of that. So this is a first. We have no idea how it's going to go. It could go any which way. And so that's pretty exciting.
I know.
Haley
doesn't
Ryan
know how
knows.
It's going.
I don't know
what's going on.
I'm just here for the ride. It's a surprise for me as much as it is you guys.
Haley just wakes up every day and like, what the hell is happening in this world? But, with that, those of you guys that don't understand what Haley does, by the way, as a bodybuilder, right? You might think, oh, she's Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, she's not. She's doing bikini. It's a division called bikini. And, it stemmed from basically a beach bikini type of body. Now it's much more advanced. But it is a very advanced female physique, to have a certain amount of muscle, certain amount of body fat. It is very advanced in a lot of ways. And a lot of people would not necessarily want to be a competitor or compete, but may like the idea of, having those things that Haley is, in other words, working for. So better believe if she's doing this and it's working, it can work for you out there. If you want to lose some weight, you want to build a little muscle, you want to, feel a little bit better, you want to be a little bit more active. The kind of aesthetic and functional sides of carnivore diet that don't have to necessarily do with, okay, I have some kind of autoimmune thing, I have some kind of this, ailment going on, I have this that's bothering me, I got to do carnivore because of that. It's not one of those. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of benefits and a lot of things that we'll cover on Haley's journey that will be relevant for all of you listening. Now, talking about starting a carnivore diet, okay? And there's a million reasons that you would want to. There's a million, types of things that may want to bring you down the road to your own carnivore experiment. But I find, and maybe you can touch on this some, Haley, I find that a lot of the carnivore, luckily you had me to tell you how to do it. Let's just say that, right? Because if you had gone to Google, for one, you never would have done it. And then for two, you would have found literally, and I got messages this morning before we recorded this of like, hey, Coach Rod, just got a question about carnivore because I've seen 78 different perspectives today on just this one thing, right? And I think what happens with a lot of the carnivore content out there and people that are, promoting the diet, trying to get people to try it, trying to get people to do it, they get so far advanced as a carnivore, like they've been doing it years, months, all this time, that they forget what it's like to be the person sitting there right now that could be listening, eating a donut or, getting ready for pizza dinner tonight. And they have no concept of tomorrow you're telling me just eat meat, right? So we will obviously want to take time today to give you guys resources, 3 different ways to start a carnivore diet that we think, will definitely work for pretty much everybody listening. And Haley, let's talk a little bit about you and your starting of carnivore, because obviously we had talked a lot about this on episode 1. If you didn't hear Haley's story and how everything worked, go back to that and you can tune in and learn more about that specifically. But we also went into how Haley kind of did our step 3, which we'll get to later. However, right, what is the most fundamental way? Why would somebody want to start carnivore diet in the first place?
I mean, there's just so many reasons. A lot of people are curious about it for weight loss. But I would say the biggest one is there's somebody out there who heard of somebody benefiting from the diet in a way that they want to benefit, right? Like maybe they had PCOS and their PCOS symptoms got better. Maybe somebody was struggling with depression and their depression went away. And so usually people want to start for those reasons. And for me, I was so desperate for healing that it was like a light switch. It was like, we had the conversation and I would say the conversation was maybe 10 minutes long, texting. And within that conversation, I was like, all right, let's go. And I remember Ryan was like, all right, how do you want to do this? And I was like, I'm just cutting out all carbs tomorrow. Like we're just starting. And that was that. It was like, and then the next day I had a steak for breakfast and I had bone broth and I had elk and we just cut all carbs and I cold turkey dove into it. And I am very grateful for the guidance that I had from Ryan during it because I had a lot of questions. I was sending him a lot of texts about, the adaptation process. I probably would not have made it through that first 14 days because I had such severe withdrawals from the amount of sugar I was eating. I had headaches. I was sick. I was literally nauseous. Like I felt like I was in my first trimester of pregnancy all over again. I felt like garbage. And I remember messaging Ryan and he was like, this is kind of a sign that your body probably really needs this. If you're having this kind of response to whole foods and just meat, then obviously all this shit, like there's a lot of shit that is being filtered out, which is exactly what was true. I mean, I had been drinking, I'd been eating a lot of sugar. We were going out every night. I was eating Chick-fil-A every week. I was eating fast food every week. Not to say there's anything wrong with Chick-fil-A, but fast food every week, Sprites, sodas. 2023 was like the unhealthiest year of my life. And that transition process was brutal. But I'm really glad that I did it the way that I did it because I'm a very all or nothing person. And we just flipped the light switch, dove right into it. And originally I was like, oh yeah, let's do this for 8 weeks. And here we are 7 months later eating only beef.
Yeah, and Haley's progress has been phenomenal. She's been getting better and better results, and people are wondering how it's happening, but had you never got to the first point of starting, it would have never happened, right? And that's the key thing to imagine, right? A lot of people, again, forget this. Like for you, even right now, you're only 7 months or so in, and I say only because a lot of people listening are like, whoa, that's a lot. But it's really not in the scope of if you decide to actually, do the carnivore experiment first off and try it. And then you decide to stick to it because you get benefits. I mean, we're talking about, people doing this for years and years and, potentially the rest of their lives. If it's something that's working for them so well and they enjoy it, why not? Why wouldn't you? Right. So, the problem is, though, thinking of you, Haley, even right now, as you sit there, you probably could think back 7 months and, you can get some cliff notes of how you felt, how you think about things, how this and that, and, how those are. But, experiencing them now would be 1,000 times different, right? So now you feel so good and you have so many benefits that's just everyday life. But 7, 8 months ago, back before carnivore, it wouldn't have been the same, right? And you kind of tend to forget that. And I think that's what happens to a lot of the people out there and a lot of the experts and everything else is, they're so adapted, so into it. They're like, it's so easy. Just go eat a steak. It's so easy. Just have some eggs. It's so easy. Just eat bacon, eat whatever. You have meat and you're good. But it's really not that easy to be somebody who's kind of in the zone where they're considering, okay, for whatever reason, it could be I got to lose weight. Everything hasn't worked. I got, mental health stuff I want to work on. Everything else hasn't worked. I got, body fat. I got this and that. I got this disease I want to try to combat. I have all these different things that are brought me to considering carnivore, but I have no idea how to start. And it's just going to be like every other diet I did where I start and it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes easier not to. So here's the easiest way, and I'm just going to dive right into it because I'm kind of already all over the place, but I'm going to keep going here. So number one, step one, this is a great way to get yourself started with carnivore, okay? And I think it's easily digestible for everybody, in every capacity, no matter what, who you are out there listening right now, even if you think this is the craziest thing in the world and you couldn't figure out how to do it, here's step one. And anybody on here can do this, okay? You start with one carnivore meal. Okay, literally one meal. Okay, and I know this sounds crazy to people like, wow, it's that simple. It is that simple, right? And how do you do it? You just remove the carb sources, the plant sources, the sugar sources that you would include with any normal meal, right? And like you can do this endlessly amounts of times. One of the easiest ones I think is just breakfast, right? Start your day with maybe a carnivore breakfast. Like Haley, what's a carnivore breakfast for you?
My favorite breakfast, it would be obviously not on prep because I'm not eating any of this on prep, but just have eggs, bacon, sausage. That is delicious. I think, if you're starting out, allow cheese in there as part of the transition because cheese is a delicious. It's an animal product, of course. As you get deeper into carnivore, cutting out dairy is always a good idea just to see if it benefits you. But for starting out, make a cheesy bacon omelet and have that every day. Let me tell you, it is delicious and you're going to be satiated and you're going to be freaking happy eating that. It is so good. And so just have that every day to start. And then, just do that for a few weeks and see how you feel.
Yeah, and see, it's just one meal, you guys. Anybody can do that, right? And, it's interesting to think about the fact that most people actually basically the same things every day, right? People got 4 or 5 different meals they rotate through in a week or whatever they do. But a lot of people literally eat the exact same breakfast every day. You know what I mean? And so if that's something you do and you're like, oh, yeah, well, normally I have eggs and I have toast and I have a piece of fruit. Okay. Ditch the toast, ditch the fruit, have some more eggs, throw maybe some bacon at it, and there's your carnivore meal. That's your first attempt at carnivore dieting. That's the first start of your carnivore experiment because basically now you've done a carnivore meal. And right out the gate when you do this, I find that it eliminates so many of the questions and the worries and the thoughts people have because basically when you look at starting any type of diet, but especially carnivore, it's very easy to stack the deck against yourself. It's very easy to look at all the different things, research, and then find all, oh, you're going to die if you do this. Your heart's going to get clogged up. All these things are going to happen, right? And so you already have every other reason not to do it. And then when you make it so complicated to say, wow, I have all these different meals. I can't figure this out. I mean, I don't know what to do. Well, getting one down Now you're in the world. Now you just entered the arena. Now you walking right out into this with an idea, okay? You're not a full carnivore, no, but you tried a carnivore meal and then nothing happened, right? Your day went pretty good. And you might notice right out of the way, starting your day that different with just that carnivore type meal, that you might notice benefits instantly. Now you may not, but either way, you've made the first step.
Yeah, some things definitely to pay attention to as you transition into carnivore is ask yourself when you eat your meals, even when you're eating non-carnivore meals, right? Like, how do you feel after that meal? How are your energy levels? Do you feel drowsy? Do you want to take a nap? Do you feel like you could go run? Do you feel alert? How would you do if you sat down to read a book right now? All of these are really good questions to see how that meal is affecting your body and how your body is essentially responding to that meal. And I found for me, after carnivore meals, I'm more alert, I'm more energized, I'm satiated longer, I have more energy, mind attention, I can read, I can do things better. Whereas before with carbs, I was crashing. And so those are just things to pay attention to, is have maybe your last normal carb meal, right? Your carb breakfast. Open your notes, make a list of all the ways that you feel. When do you get hungry next? How long can you go without being hungry? And then the next day have your carnivore meal and pay attention to it. Have a journal, really try and learn these things about your body so that you can optimize your body and how you're functioning and how you're feeling, because those are great tells for how your body is doing for the most part.
Yes. And, it's great that you brought that up. Everybody should be doing that. If you're listening right now, start a notes in your phone or on a piece of paper, whatever your method is, that says carnivore experiment. Okay. And you're going to start a carnivore experiment by doing this. And you're going to take notes on these meals and things you're doing and feeling, because I find, it's easy for me and Haley, who are coaches. We coach people all around the world. We've done it for years, right? Haley's a competitor. She's a bodybuilder. I'm a bodybuilding coach. It's easy for us to be like, oh yeah, but you go eat the meal and then you feel different, right? But a lot of people don't have that awareness with food. They don't have that, know-how. They're not paying attention to that all the time. Haley wants to pay attention to that, because if she goes to the gym and she can't do her workout because she ate something that made her feel different, or it's going to affect her result. But the average everyday person, you guys, you want to be more aware. You want to build this awareness around your habits with your nutrition. You want to start building that. And the way you do it is start literally force yourself to sit down, think about it for 10 minutes, and it takes no time. And it seems a little tedious in the beginning, but as you get used to it, as you notice the benefit, again, you're backing up the fact that, okay, this actually may be working for me. Wow, I ate just eggs and bacon this morning, and all of a sudden I felt I didn't have the brain fog that normally hits me around 10, 11 in the morning. I didn't need that second cup of coffee. I didn't need, this and that. And again, we're talking about one meal. Okay. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're talking about you have one meal and then you go about the rest of your day. It's pretty simple. If you're one of the people that say, I can't get rid of carbs right now, I can't even fathom that. I'm interested to see if there's any benefit for me doing a carnivore diet, but I'm afraid of getting rid of the carbs. Well, now you only did it for one meal and you got 2 others, 3 others, whatever you're doing with that day where you can have carbs, you can do whatever. And you've now opened the door to be able to go further into the carnivore diet, right? And so it could be simple enough as just doing that every day for a week, for 2 weeks, for whatever, getting your groove down. And then you probably organically do find by then a lot of the benefits we're talking about, right? Like maybe you have more energy throughout your day. Maybe you reduced some brain fog. Maybe you feel just better for other reasons that we don't know, because we don't feel the way you feel all the time. And now you're like, you know what? Maybe I want to try a little bit more. And that's where we go to step 2, right? Which is a little bit of a bigger option and another way you can start carnivore diet, or you can start with step 1 and go here, which is a carnivore day. Okay, so now you're going to go take your full carnivore experience from meal 1 and try to figure out how to convert your meals to a day. Haley, what was this like for you in the beginning when you had to do this? Because, obviously I helped you set it up, but, you had to go out there and pull all this crazy meat from your fridge and everything else out, right? And figure out what you were going to do. So how did you go about it when you had to do your first day carnivore?
We've always been big meat eaters. We have cattle ranchers in our family, so we've always had a lot of meat on deck. I think my first day, literally, I just had eggs. I'm pretty sure I even started my day with a steak. I went hard the first day. I was more committed. And I remember I had steak. We always make elk jerky in our house. My husband and I, we go hunting every year, and so we have a lot of elk meat in our fridge. So we had elk jerky, and I had whole eggs, and I had ground beef. And then I think for dinner, as a family, we made burgers, and I had burger patties with cheese and bacon. And it was a great first day. I was like, this is amazing. This is delicious. This is better than any diet I've ever done, because I've always tracked my macros. But before, in order to fit my macros with carbs, I was eating like plain chicken and broccoli and white rice. And let me tell you, that sucks compared to eating beef with cheese and whole eggs. Like, that is so much more satiating and delicious. And so, the first day was great. And I think if that's something that you guys are interested in doing, like, pick a day and then, just see how you feel. Now, granted, there is kind of an adaptation period. I kind of touched on that for some people, depending on what your diet was like before.
Yep.
So if you do choose to do a day, or several days in a row, maybe you try to do every other day, you do have to give your body a chance to adapt to life without carbs, which we'll cover more of that in option 3. I don't want to get ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's again just another step of step 1.
Yeah.
You went from one meal, you go to now a full day. And this is where, if you're doing this one, by the way, you guys, you're totally fine to start with just doing a day. Anybody can do it. There is, like Haley's saying, adaptations and other things, but they happen less when you're doing a day or when you're doing a meal than if you go, all in. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But, really what you want to make sure you're doing here is, again, you're just expanding your opportunity to gain the experience of the diet. Figure a little bit more out about your food, figure it out a little bit more about this. And this is where, if you're doing a full day, you want to be a little bit smarter with your food choices, right? You want to make sure you're not going in there like Haley talked last episode. We talked about, like, can't be doing egg whites and chicken breast and expecting a good result. If you do that, you're going to feel terrible, right? So you want to make sure that you are prioritizing the meats that you should be focused on, the good healthy fats, the steaks and the ground beefs and the eggs and everything else that's there that you need to make sure you're getting this fat. And everything we talked about episode 1 was actually that you should be paying attention to your proteins, you should be paying attention to your fats that you're having every day, you should be tracking this stuff, your calories, all this. And I obviously want to reiterate that, like, that should be a fundamental. This is a successful piece of your journey if you do that, because literally, let's say you were doing a carnivore day, you're like, I'm going to do a carnivore day, but I'm just going to go eat meat and do whatever. Well, okay, you have X amount of ways that can go, right? If you go have chicken and egg whites to do all this and that, you're going to feel terrible and say, this diet sucks, I'm off of it forever, But had you had some actual macro goals, you had a little bit of like, oh, I need to hit this amount of protein, I need to hit this amount of fats, I'm going to track that and make sure I do that. You're pretty much guaranteed to get the benefit of doing that day. So there is a huge thing to be said for the fact that you want to be smart about your food choices, making sure you're getting the right calories, making sure you're getting the right macros. And like, that's going to happen on the carnivore meal day. That's going to happen on the carnivore full day. That's going to happen anytime you're doing carnivore diet. If you want to get to the best result you can, you're going to want to be paying attention to these variables. And for those of you out there that think, okay, just go eat meat, just do this and that, and that's going to work, or maybe it has worked. I'll tell you what, having coached thousands of people for years and years, I'll tell you what, there's always a little bit of time in the beginning that things work a little bit. Everything will work. Getting off the couch for the first time and taking a walk around your neighborhood, you'll lose weight, right? Going to the gym for the first time, if you've never been, you'll gain some muscle. Starting any type of diet when you haven't had one will give you a result. But the truth of the matter still becomes that time will end, those benefits will end, and then you'll be stuck. And that's when people quit. That's why 95% of diets literally do not succeed. When you look at people in the long term, they always gain their weight back. They don't have the structure. They don't have the discipline. They don't have the guidance. They don't have the know-how. And this is like what we do, by the way. We're not just coaching carnivores people. We coach all kinds of people to the best, most optimal results for them, given the circumstances and the tools. And, with that, the carnivore day becomes another way to approach the diet, to gain a little bit more traction, gain a little bit more function. Now, you might not be Haley too, over here with like 17, freezers full of meat and everything else, right? Like if you don't want to do that, right? Like, I know that's a big conflict with carnivore, right? Is a lot of people say, you've probably seen some of this, Haley, on your Instagram, maybe, I can't afford to eat a ribeye every day. I can't afford, these things. But realistically, when you factor in removal of all the bad food that you eat, it does kind of even out, right? And even Haley's not only eating, like, Haley's not hunting every single piece of meat she's eating or something, right? If she happens to have some, then that is what it is. But, if that's you and you're like, I can't afford nothing but ground beef and, maybe some eggs, go get that. Or if you can't even afford if all you can eat is eggs, hey, you know what? I go for it. Put a little cheese on top of it. Go for the eggs. That's your carnivore day. It's an egg day. Why not? You could do that. You could literally do that, and you would probably still feel and gain benefit from that.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind too, to touch on what you were saying about making sure you're having enough fats, is when you take a macro group out, when you take carbs out, something has to replace it. Fats, right? So just remember that. Like if you're going to take carbs out, fats need to replace those carbs. It can't just be all protein, right? So you want to get high fatty meats. And then yes, to what Ryan was saying is, you know, there are several ways to do the carnivore diet and it be affordable. You know, Costco, Sam's, they all have great deals. And if you can't afford a membership, find somebody with a membership, go with them, or you and one household both get a membership together, like get a membership with your best friend where you guys are both paying half instead of the full amount of a membership, right? Like, I don't even know if that's allowed, but I know people who do that. So I feel like that's
Costco's never going to sponsor us now. No.
Oh, shit, right? Oh. And so you can do that and go and get those giant crates of eggs. Go buy, like, you can ask the butchers back there, like, can I get like a 10-pound thing of ground beef? They do it. They will. You can ask them, like, what are your cheapest cuts of meats? Chuck roast is extremely cheap and delicious. Like, I was shocked at how good it was. So you can always go ask a butcher, like, what are the best, you know, fattiest, cheaper cuts of meat? How do I cook it? They're going to have 1,000 tips for you guys. And that's what I did. You know, when I wanted to go to the butcher, I always ask them questions. I'm always trying to learn more. This is their job. You know what I mean? Like, just ask, try and learn. Google is free. You know what I mean? Where there's a will, there's a way. And even farmers markets, like when we already ate through all of our ground beef from our cow like months ago. So I buy all of our ground beef from the farmers market. I get like 10 pounds for $50. Right. That's an insane deal. And that's like premium quality meat, not grocery store meat. It's like she butchered her cow, brought it to the farmer's market, and I got 10 pounds for $50. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there are so many ways. You just have to, you know what it is it's just new. You're not used to shopping this way. You're not used to, but once you do it, then you do it and then it's done and it's crazy easy. You just have to break through that barrier and talk to your butcher, go to your farmer's market, ask people questions, be willing to learn about the world of meat and animals and cuts and pricing and once you learn it, it is so easy and it is so much more affordable than people think it is. You do not need to be buying ribeyes from Whole Foods every single week, right? There are so many other ways. There's so many other ways to get meat at an affordable price and have the diet be affordable.
Yes, and maybe, you know, we do a full episode on that. So if you guys are enjoying this podcast, make sure you're subscribed, you're hanging out with us. And if you got time, you know, you do decide to go on a carnivore experiment, share this with somebody out there. You know, be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try this crazy thing these two crazy people are talking about, and I'm going to see what happens. Maybe you should join me, right? But we'll do a full episode, I think. Maybe episode 3 we'll do on, you know, cuts of meat, how to figure it out, how to budget for carnivore, how to do all these things, because those are all huge other obstacles, right? If you've mentally got yourself ready to the point where you try the diet, you'll try a carnivore experiment, but you don't have any way to fathom how to budget that or afford that or what food choices to make, well, we'll tell you in episode 3, so hang out with us. Now, going back to the carnivore day, right? If you do decide to do a carnivore day or even a carnivore meal, what I suggest, by the way, too, is don't even necessarily go out of your way to go buy anything new for this, okay? Like, it's often much easier to just take pieces away from the meals you're already eating, you know? So like I said, if somebody normally has eggs and toast for breakfast or oatmeal, eggs and oatmeal or whatever for breakfast, you just remove that carb source and up whatever protein and fat source you had at that meal. And that could be a nice, easy way that doesn't even hit the budget at all, right? So like, you know, if somebody has, I don't even know what's a common dinner these days, but like just remove the carb pieces, right? Just take those pieces out, take the plant pieces out, try that and see.
Yeah, like hamburgers. Our first night as a family, we all had hamburgers. I took away the bun, still had the bacon, still had the. It was easy. It was super easy, you know. And if the family's having spaghetti and meatballs, I'm having meatballs. You know what I mean? And the rest of the family's having spaghetti. I'm not even making drastically different meals than my family. We're still all eating the same thing. My family still eats protein. My kids still eat protein. It's just they also have the carb piece, and I take away the carb piece, and it's just normal. It's like not even a big deal. My kids don't even notice it. Like no one, you know what I mean? Like I just say, oh, you know, I really love eating meat. I really love the cheese and the meat. And maybe we do another episode on how to talk with kids about eating healthy in a way that is actually beneficial and doesn't create any kind of like eating disorder mindsets, which I know is a big worry for parents.
And also how to tell people what you're doing if you got to, you know, your friends, your family, whoever, if you're worried about that, because that's another conflict. So obviously you can see how me and Haley, we tend to always get ahead of ourselves with ideas. And that's why we did this podcast, to help you guys out. But stick with us, you know, stay with us. We got a lot more we're talking. Now, even if you go into it and you have a hard time doing that carnivore day, right? Just give it a process, right? I want to make sure everybody knows this. For step 1, step 2, or any step, you have to have a good trial period of time to actually see what's going to happen. So, you know, maybe day 1, you go do a carnivore day and you're like, okay, well, I did it. I successfully pulled it off, but it was kind of a pain to really adjust my meals and get the carb sources out and figure this and that out. Okay, well, you know, that pain has been reduced by day 2 of that, by day 3 of that, by day 4 of that. By day 5, you're a pro. Okay, it's just the same thing I've already done. Realistically, no matter how busy you are, how much time you have in your day or anything else, you can fumble your way to success by doing this. Or you could literally find 10 minutes and plan it out in advance, honestly, too, if you wanted to, and say, okay, well, I'm going to do a carnivore day. What am I going to eat tomorrow? What am I going to do here and there? Okay, I can't have carbs, can't have plants, can't have this and that. I'm going to just have this for breakfast, this for lunch, you're done, all right? So you can do it either way, whatever sounds best to you, but make sure you give yourself a trial period of time. And even if you do get your notes and you put in there like, hey, carnivore day, feel really tired today, feel really exhausted, didn't have as good energy, didn't have this and that. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and just assume that because you had an off day, which could be, by the way, from 1,000 other things. Maybe your kids were driving you nuts that day. Maybe your boss was driving you nuts that day. Maybe you didn't sleep good that night. Maybe whatever, the sun is lined up with Mars in this weird way. I don't know what it is, but maybe there's a million other reasons that you could have an off day that have nothing to do with your diet. So continue again the process of giving yourself enough time to really go through it. And that's actually what our step 3 is. Right? If you want to just go in how Haley did, which is real hardcore, but there's some of you out here listening that this sounds like your jam, right? I'm one of those people too with anything. Yeah. You go all in from day 1. Yeah. You go head first. Once you make a decision, you go for it. And this is our step 3. For some of you listening, this is the best way to do carnivore, right? Doing a carnivore meal that's still, you do that and then you have, you know, you junk the rest of the day, whatever it is. I don't know. You know, for some people, they'll never transition off of that. Some people literally have to be in the zone where they say, okay, well, here I am. I've made the decision. I'm going to do the diet. I'm going to try the carnivore. I'm going to do a carnivore experiment. It's going to be 2 weeks, kind of like Haley, what she did. And then you go. And that's what Haley did. So Haley, tell us, obviously we know your story. We know why we did it. We did all that. And again, if you guys didn't hear that, go back to episode 1, full story on there, Haley's journey and why. But we started literally, it was like a 5-minute conversation. I was getting gas, right? Like I was at the gas station, filling my car up because I was coming back from the gym. And I remember sending you the text, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try carnivore. And I remember that, you know, like it was like a 5-second thing. And I had been trying to get Haley to do it a long time. Don't get me wrong. But she did make the decision to do it literally probably at like, I don't know, 3, 4 p.m. in the afternoon, my time. The next day she was carnivore. So what part of your brain made you get to that level, right? Like probably option 1 or 2 of this list, I don't really think would have worked for you because you're kind of an all or nothing in person. So do you factor that in to how people should start a carnivore diet, what kind of person they are?
Yeah. I think, you know, I think if you're going to dive in, you should commit to a minimum of 30 days. And the reason for that is because of the adaptation period we were kind of talking about. Obviously, if you go way 1 or way 2, the adaptation period is lessened because you're easing more into the diet, right? Like maybe you do breakfast for a week and then you do 3 days the next week. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to commit, right? That's kind of more baby stepping your way into like a 30-day commitment experiment.
Right.
But depending on who you are and what your diet was like before the carnivore diet, that is going to affect your body's adaptation period from a glycogen fed state to a fat fed state, right? Yeah. And you might feel nothing at all. You're just all of a sudden eating animal proteins, animal fats. You might get migraines from cutting the sugar out, right? You might feel these ways. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is not to scare anyone, but just to be very real about like, if that happens, that does not mean that it's not working. If anything, it probably means your body needs it more. I know that that's what that meant for me, because let me tell you, come day 10, 11, 12, I felt amazing. I could not believe how good I felt, the energy I had. I was waking up at 4 a.m., crushing my workouts, reading books. It was just such a huge difference. But if I didn't have Ryan telling me this is normal, push through, suck it up, I would have stopped at day 7 and I wouldn't be here talking about this today. So I want to be that person now where it's like, if you feel like garbage the first 2-ish weeks, if you're having nausea, if you're having, migraines, if you feel gross, your body has been used to carbs every single day for the last however many years of your life you've lived. So for me, that was 32 years. And specifically the past year of me starting carnivore, I had a lot of alcohol. I had done a lot of sugar eating. And so the transition for my body was very hard. It wasn't like I was coming from prep to carnivore, from one Whole Foods diet to another Whole Foods diet. I was coming from the American Standard diet, which the vast majority of people are, to a pure Whole Foods high fat diet, right? And so just be willing to push through the adaptation phase, and maybe we'll do a whole podcast on that phase. But I would say commit for 30 days so that you give your body a nice 1 to 2 weeks to adapt. And then you can actually see how your body would feel on carnivore the next 2 weeks. And just give yourself that window of time, because once again, you're going from a glycogen fed state to a fat fed state. And that's a process for the body. And so some people it happens faster. Other people it takes some time. For me, Ryan and I speculated it took like a full 2 weeks for everything to kind of like adjust and settle down. So I would say dive in, just cut out all the carbs. That means fruits. That means veggies. That means oatmeal. That means rice. That means Chick-fil-A. That means all of that. And just dive into a whole foods animal-based diet, which is just any animal product. You have fish, beef, chicken, pork, lamb, goat. There's all of these things that you can eat. And then if you want to ease into it a little bit more, like what I did is I allowed myself, black coffee, which I still have to this day. We haven't cut that out yet. And then I had cheese for a while, and that really helped too, having cheese on my eggs or having, just that extra flavor added to things. And you just kind of rip the Band-Aid off. You decide you're going to do it for 30 days and you stick to it for that 30 days no matter what. Yeah.
And in the next episode, we'll talk a lot more about budgets and meat cuts and everything else. But I do want to say this just for the sake of this. Anything you can eat that is carnivore, animal-based, animal this and that, cheese is technically, in my opinion, not carnivore. To Haley, who knows where Haley is on this one, but, there's a lot of things. Anything you can do to eliminate the carbs, eliminate the sugars, eliminate the processed foods, eliminate all that and go to that, do that, right? Like, I don't care if you're eating a hot dog for a meal or 5 hot dogs for a meal. I mean, do it then. If that's what you got to do, if that's where you're at, if that's what the budget allows, if that's, what you can do. And you can always fine tune and change those things later as you learn more about the process. I think that it can be very easy to stack the deck with all the negatives of like, no, I don't want to change. Human beings do not want to change, you guys. This is not something that is good. Humans seek comfort 24/7, no matter what. It's a survival mechanism. It is built into your brain. You have to literally spend every day of your life with anything in the fitness realm or any other area of your life you want to go far in, prosper in. You're going to have to spend time, constantly fighting against that comfort factor. So when it comes to something big like this, right? Like in everybody's head, starting a carnivore diet, very big thing, kind of crazy thing. A lot of crazy people doing it, right? A lot of people saying you shouldn't do it. A lot of people saying you're going to die if you do it, right? Well, what you got to do is you got to make sure you're not stacking that deck so negatively against you that you'll never even start. So just start with anything, right? Like start where you're at, start with what you got, eliminate some of the carbs, eliminate the sugar, eliminate this stuff and see what happens. And I think a big key factor of that is if you do know what type of person you are, right? Like if you know, okay, I'm an all or nothing person, kind of like how Haley is, right? Like I knew, like strategically, as I explained to you guys before episode 1, right? Like I tried to get Haley to do carnivore many times as her coach because I knew, that she would get some benefits out of it. I knew she already had some markers of like, oh yeah, she's out there getting elks. She's all doing this. I mean, it should be easy to get Haley to try carnivore for her goals in competing, which I thought would be beneficial for her, right? But the day that it did strike was a unique moment for me to be able to jump in there and say, oh, here it is. Because I know how Haley is. I know if we say this right now, like, let's try it today, she's going to do it. And it worked, right? And so the carnivore experiment obviously benefited her greatly. And here she is, 7 months still doing it. We have no end date or idea when that will end. So if you do know you're a person like that and you're like, I'm all or nothing, I can't inch my way, I can't do the single day because the next day I'll be eating Little Caesars and 12-pack of donuts, right? Like, okay, well, then maybe you do need to just say, hey, I know myself well enough to pull the trigger on this and give myself the best opportunity to actually see what it's like and to dive in and to go for it. And if that's you and you know that about yourself in other areas of your life, that might be the one to do. However, keep this in mind, everybody. Step 3, going from 0 to 60, literally in one day, like tomorrow's carnivore, I'm doing it. I'm a carnivore diet, is the most extreme way to do it. You will have the most side effects. You will have the most, hardships of it. You will have to be the most disciplined with it. It is much easier, to be honest with you, to start with the meal a day or the carnivore day even and slowly build your way towards full carnivore. Really, that's what it becomes, right? Because if you start the meal and you do that for a month, right? Every single day, oh, I just do carnivore breakfast. Great. I'm feeling good, whatever. A little bit of benefits. Great. Now I'm going to try a day. The 1 day a week becomes 2 days a week, becomes 3 days a week, becomes 5. Now, okay, great. Now I'm just going to go full carnivore. Piece of cake. All right. Your body's already done a lot of the adapting. It's already done a lot of the adjusting. It's, the mental piece is totally gone. You don't got to worry about that. You already know, okay, well, if I'm feeling good doing it 3 days a week, let me click on another couple days and I'm probably going to feel even better. It's much easier to do it that way. So, for Haley, it worked. It is the most extreme way. Haley's a pretty extreme person in the things she does. That's why she wants to be a bodybuilder. So if you have extreme goals and you got good discipline and you can do that. But even Haley, as she said, had I not been in the corner there with her to be like, hey, got to do this, got to stick to that. No, that's normal. No, this and that. May not be here today, you guys. So that's a huge factor, right? Figure out where you're at in your life today. Not everybody can go hire a carnivore coach like me and Haley that can help you with this stuff. Not everybody out there can go I got to get 7 ribeyes to eat for lunch every single day this week. Not everybody can do those things, and that's fine. But you know what you can do? All of you can make better choices with your food wherever you're at and start the kind of thing now with step 1, 2, or 3 and see what's going to fit best for you. And just give it a go. Start the carnivore experiment. That's really the idea. It's an experiment. It doesn't need to be the rest of your life. It's something you can try and see if you get a benefit. And if you don't, you already know where me and Haley stand on that. If you try carnivore and you don't think anything's done good for you, nothing's happened, you've taken your notes, you're like, I did it for a month, it didn't do anything for me. Great. Go back to whatever you're doing with your life. And, you're probably better from it, at least still trying it and learning that about yourself in one way or another. And if you do it, you do the one meal, you do the 1 day, you do the one anything, and you're like, wow, this has changed something. Then you know what? You've spent a lot of your life missing out on the things that could have been better. So it's definitely either way worth kind of giving it a go.
Yeah, I definitely think, if you are going to dive in, just rip the Band-Aid off. But that's also one of the reasons why we've created this podcast is so, like what Ryan was saying, if you can't hire a carnivore coach, that's why we're here to provide the support via this podcast, even saying like, look, you've decided to commit to the 30 days, stick with it. You're going to feel like garbage maybe for the first 10. You're going to have migraines. We've prepared you for that. We've told you this could happen. You might feel nausea. Your digestion might be a little messed up as you adapt. You have to remember you are taking away something that you have done literally every single day of your entire life, right? Just overnight. You're ripping the Band-Aid off. You're not going to feel amazing until you adapt to that. Now, the cool thing is when you look at maybe you ate carbs every day for the last 30 years of your life, a 2-week adaptation period is nothing. That is freaking phenomenal. That's like light speed time in comparison to how long you've been eating garbage. Like really, that is such a fast amount of time to adapt after doing something for decades, right? So just keep that in mind. Let these words ring in your ears, push through. You're resilient. You can do it. Stick with it. Commit to the 30 days. And like Ryan said, if you, at the end of the 30-day mark, you're like, wow, that was cool. I'm really glad I experimented. It wasn't for me. At least you tried. At least you know now. You know what I mean? Nothing bad's going to happen from 30 days of eating meat. You know what I mean? And like he also said, maybe you find out that you feel really good. Maybe you're like, wow, I thought being a mom meant permanent brain fog for the rest of my life, but my brain fog's completely gone. You know what I mean? And you might you might reap life-changing benefits like so many people on the carnivore diet do claim. Now we're not claiming that this diet is for everybody. But we do think, I am a firm believer in you do not know unless you try it. Like you have no idea unless you try, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing with everything, right? And, you know, diet culture anyway, there's thousands of diets because they worked for at least one person at some point and they thought it was a good idea. But the truth is they probably work for a lot of people. And that's why variances of them are out there. And, you know, carnivore is an extreme type of diet because it eliminates a lot of different food groups. You know, it's, as we have said before on the show, is basically a everyday elimination diet in a lot of ways, right? Like you're eating it all the time, but eliminating anything that could give you negative effects, which, you know, is a good thing, but not everybody can do it at that level. And that's fine too. Whatever level you're at though, if you have something you want better out of life, it is worth it to figure that out. It is worth it to try to do that. If you're totally happy with everything that's going on in your world, you know, you're happy with how much you weigh, you're happy with the body fat you got, you're happy with any, you know, your health and how you feel every day and your brain quality, your mental state, all this, if you're happy with all that, I guarantee you didn't make it 45 minutes into this podcast. Okay. And here you are. So now it might be the time for you to say, hey, I'm going to click the button. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to start with carnivore meal tomorrow. I'm going to start with carnivore day. I'm going to go head first. And because you know what, this 45 minutes has been the best 45 minutes of my life, and now I need to try it. You know, whatever it is, you got to get in there and you got to give it a go, because either way, it just becomes an experiment. And that's exactly why we named the show this, right? Like, hey, you know what, Haley's whole journey of 7 months now, plus almost 8, started as a, like, I think it was, she says 30, you say 30, but I'm pretty sure initially, and if I went back and looked at text, I think it was probably 10 days is what we said.
I don't think so. I think maybe you said that.
I'm gonna check that for episode 3. You guys,
I think it was actually.
Take notes.
I think it was eight weeks. We always do this where we debate and then we have to fact check. I think it was 8 weeks. Yeah, you check it. I'll check it.
Either way,
we'll send each other receipts.
It doesn't matter, no matter where it is. Either way, you know, it can start small. Is what I'm saying. You guys can start with. I'm gonna commit to carnivore for one freaking day. One day. That's it. I'm just gonna try one day. That could be your experiment. And then, you know what? You've got to weigh the pros and cons of your experiment. Was it good? Did it feel good? Did it feel bad? Okay. Well, see what you want to do the next day and continue again to give yourself that time though, and trial. And just because you try it once doesn't mean it doesn't work. And just because you tried it for 2 weeks and you don't feel great doesn't mean it doesn't work. You've got to give yourself an opportunity to really see, is this something that actually does work for you or not?
Yeah.
And you will notice that quickly. I will tell you this. Most people, like, you know, because I obviously, you guys, if you haven't heard this enough, we are fitness coaches. So we're doing this day in, day out, giving people diets, giving people workouts, giving people training to get them to their goals. And I'll tell you what, anytime that I give anybody anything that is emphasized more on, you know, meats and natural whole food sources, no matter their dietary choice, they feel better. So it's pretty safe to say if you go try a carnivore experiment, you will notice positives. You will notice a lot of them, and they will, you know, outweigh the negatives if you do get any. And even if you do get negatives, they're probably going to be a short time in space, a short time before they're gone. And, you know, it could even be just undoing a lot of bad habits and a lot of bad dietary things and a lot of side effects from things you were doing to yourself all the time before it, you know? So
yeah,
that's it, you guys. I think, you know, plug and play on one of these three options, give it a go, see what you think. And we're going to do some more episodes. We want to know what you guys think, you know, give us some comments, share it if you can, subscribe, check it out. Oh, I was supposed to say, but I guess we'll do it next time now. I think we're going to start a separate channel for this podcast, Haley, to put a whole carnivore experiment channel on YouTube. So you guys stay tuned for that. You may even be watching this there. I don't know yet. We'll find out. But either way, keep eyes out on everything else. Haley, anything else you want to add to this today?
No, let us know if you end up trying one of the ways. Comment below. You know, feel free to DM Ryan or I on Instagram
where
or anything.
Follow you, Haley? Where do they follow you?
Coach Hood, send me a DM if you're going to try it and you have questions. Like, we're literally here to support you. This is what it's not only just our careers, but we genuinely love and are passionate about what we do. Like, I love talking about fitness. I love helping people reach their peak health, you know, however road, whatever pathway we take, whatever diet we go to get there. So DM us, let us know if you try one of the 3 ways. Let us know if it works. Let us know if you have any questions. And then also let us know if you guys have any questions that you want us to cover in a podcast. Maybe we start answering questions at the beginning of every podcast or something. Definitely. So let us know if that's something you guys want us to do.
Love it. Yep, we will do that, you guys. And thank you for listening. Remember, it's a brand new show. So if you got an extra 2 minutes in your day, send it to somebody you think might just, you know what, they might just try a carnivore experiment. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We are out.